Good evening. Welcome to Let Kashmir Decide this evening and the role of the Kashmiri youths. Unfortunately, we had some technical issues, and then the delay in that has unfortunately seen Tanvir unable to join us. He has an exam tomorrow and has taken him. And we will continue tonight with the discussion, and we're going to look at the movement and where we've come. We're aware this week, sorry, I'm Claire Bidwell, a pro-Kashmiri activist, human rights activist, and a school teacher from Scotland. And I'm speaking tonight with Mary Scully from the USA, a political writer, an analyst, and a long-time activist with much experience of struggles, colonial struggles and occupation over the year, and well aware of movements. And as you know, that's what we're trying to do here, is build this solidarity movement with the Kashmiris to bring out the issue internationally, to add the solidarity, to add that awareness, because we believe as a people's movement, until our governments and the United Nations and the world people know that the people want this, there will be little change. So it's about, if the people want that change, then we need to be that change. So that's what we're here doing and trying to grow. So at the moment, what we are seeing is Indian occupied Kashmir generally silenced, completely silenced. We hear nothing. The youths are feared to go on their social media, onto any sites, because they will be done for sedition. Anybody speaking out against the Modi government, the BJP regime, and the RSS army are either done for sedition, in jail, imprisoned. People, so many young boys are going missing. We're seeing fake encounters. There's unknown crimes in there at the minute. We know the demography is taking place. No United Nations officers are in the area, allowed in the area. We're seeing no, like the human rights activists being jailed, and reporters being jailed, and the likes. We know right now the leaders, the political leaders, anybody fighting for freedom, for struggling to be heard in Kashmir are incarcerated, those that are leaders. And obviously today what we're seeing is the leader of the JKLF, and very much a leader of a democratic freedom movement, is Yasin Malik. He today is going on hunger strike. It may well be tomorrow, I'm not sure. But right now he is going on a hunger strike till death, until he gets fair judicial system in India. He wants to be seen within the court, and he wants a fair trial. We know that he's already been sentenced to life, unfortunately. And the sad thing is, starting a hunger strike when he does have health conditions, and he isn't in a well condition because he's confined to this cell, this is critical. So what we are seeing many of the youths doing, and many of those that have been campaigning for a long time, hunger striking today in solidarity. So there's leadership in Azad that are sitting outside the Islamabad press club right now, and there are movements across Azad Kashmir and plans for Europe. I think London starts tomorrow outside the embassy. We're also looking at another JKLF faction group will be making their way to tea tree note. I'm not sure if that's how you say it, I apologize, but to the ceasefire line, looking for a prolonged sit down, to look for the freedom, to look for the removal of the ceasefire line. Now that march, that walk, that procession there has many women and children. It's a real cross-section of society. Thousands of civilians, who knows how many, estimated 5,000 would be making their way there for a sit down. Obviously the concern around that, the safety. So I'm going to bring Mary in, and we're going to discuss around these issues. And Mary's been working this week, and there's been a lot happening, so she's not aware of it all. So we're going to have that catch up. We're going to have that discussion, exploring the role of the youth, exploring what's happening with Yasin Malik, the protest marches from Azad's side, and what we can hear, and how we're going to bring that out internationally as we walk towards Red for Kashmir. So good evening to you, Mary.
Good evening.
And thank you very much for joining me. It's a shame that Tanvir couldn't wait around. I know you're very protective of him because he does so much. Mary, what could you share with us about Tanvir and the work that you've seen him do? I know you find him very inspiring.
I first met him, you might have known him earlier. I first met him when we were building for Red for Kashmir last year. He's an organizing person, but he also has artistic talents and computer talents. And he took the initiative, and when you were making so many of those Red for Kashmir posters, there was a lot of work involved in that, and he did several for us that you didn't have time to do because you had hundreds. So he did that, and that's when I first met him. He's quite impressive. His presence on social media is very strong. He's always campaigning for Kashmir. He's a student, and he appeals to me in so many ways because I love young activists. There's the hope of the future. So I was really looking forward to hearing him. I think he's very insightful, judging from his social media posts. And he couldn't. It's 11 o'clock at night. He's a serious student. He couldn't go. Stay out these technical difficulties and also get up and take a coherent exam. So we're going to be talking to him next week. We're not going to lose him. The unfortunate thing is the time difference that puts him at a big disadvantage. But we'll get a chance to talk to him. I actually, Claire, like you say, I've been working this week. I wish you would elaborate more, because I don't know if a lot of people know what's going on with Yasin Malik's personal hunger strike. And like you say, he's not a well man. He has several major afflictions, including a heart disease, and he's living in a nasty prison, a hellhole of a prison. If you could go elaborate more about his hunger strike, and then this whole hunger strike movement going on, apparently not only in Azad and probably Pakistan, but also in the UK. Maybe you could elaborate on that, because that's actually a very important thing, especially when India has been trying to kill the movement and destroy solidarity by severing communication, that this movement is so vibrant that they would have a hunger strike movement in solidarity with Yasin Malik. So maybe you could go into that a lot. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I mean, hearing you say all that, Mary, we all get caught up in this movement. And I've said to people before, that almost becomes an acceptance of a lot of situations, as though there's some kind of normalcy. So when you stand back, and it's like hearing your words say there, this is a huge time and a huge part for this movement. And, we've often said with India before, they don't want to be seen as bad. From their point of view, they think, or they try to project that they're helping, that this needs to be done and this needs to be done, and why. Now, if Yasin Malik, if this is followed through, because his trial suddenly appeared, a couple of months back, there's all the big protests for Yasin Malik. And then sadly, the news that came out was, he admitted his guilt and, was sentenced as such. But what we do know is what he said was, if struggling for freedom and, being a victim of this circumstance is a crime, then I'm guilty. So they've twisted that to say, he's guilty, he's done all this, he's done all that. So he got that life sentence really suddenly, and they might as well be a slow death, because as we know, he has the heart condition, and the cell he's in right now, it doesn't even have a window. We saw there the other day, it's the Nelson Mandela Day. So we're all very aware of the people's movement. 27 years he was in jail. 27 years it took people power, the songs, the music, the arguing, just saying quite simply, this isn't right. And that's what we have here with Yasin Malik. This isn't right. Because as a sovereign nation, or under the United Nations, Kashmiris have a right to be heard. But ultimately, everybody, I feel, is a victim of this circumstance. And that why Let Kashmir Decide would eradicate all this. So what we would love to see right now, India where they're holding, they want, because this man speaks for Kashmir, he's a big part of the freedom movement. They think by doing this, they're going to knock everybody's morals down and spirit down and kick the fight in that way. But what they don't realize is for every Yassin Malik, they squash, them more are born and raised. And that's the beauty of the Kashmiris. They refuse to bow down. So the serious of this nature right now, what Yassin Malik wants is he wants to be in the court. This is about the what's the word, hijacking or abduction of a judge's daughter or some, I'm not quite sure, I can't even remember the name just now, sorry. People that are aware of this issue will know who it is, but it was done in an exchange for some Kashmiri other prisoners. I believe he knew the woman, they knew the woman, she wasn't mistreated in any way, she was treated like a member of the family. It was a strategy to get the, you know, their friends back out. And you know, so we're looking back 30 years ago, as we've said before, you know, many of these are fabricated. We also know that Yassin Malik was accepted onto a political stage, almost like absolved of what's happened before, recognizing that everybody is victims of this conflict. And none of this would be happening if Kashmiris were having their say. So here he is today. He wants to appear in the court himself, and he wants to be tried fairly and judicially. So he has no other means of protesting. So I often think a hunger protest is, you know, it's a difficult one. It's almost like a defeatist one, it's a taking away, well, I'm going to starve myself, I'm going to self-harm myself. But what choice does he have? What else, what other form of protest does he have? We know from years back, you know, it came, I think, hunger strikes from the Russian Revolution, and then it was used by suffragettes really successfully back in their day, and they were released from jails. So what we have here is potentially a man that could die within 3 weeks. He won't last much longer than 3 weeks. I mean, he has the heart of an ox and a lion, but with his health condition, we're looking at 3 weeks. He's put himself on starvation to death. So India, it's on their hands now, their judicial system and the choices that they make here. How hard is it to allow him to appear in court? How hard is it to get him representation? How hard is it in front of the eyes of the world to say, okay, this is how we feel about him, this is what we're going to do, and yeah, okay, we'll do it fairly. You know, why not say, right, okay, let's get this issue resolved, let's put it to all the Kashmiris, let's hold that plebiscite and let's get this issue solved. If people want to be with India, then they can vote with India, there's nothing to fear. So as a world people, we want to solve this with everybody. Now we know we're dealing with an interesting animal with the Modi government, possibly something that's worse than the Nazis. So we're not just talking about a picnic in the park. So what we're seeing that's massive is the support that Yassin Malik has amongst his own members. And they are, so the leadership are in Islamabad, in Pakistan. They're outside the Islamabad Press Club, because obviously if this can be shared to the world, worldwide, to reach human rights organizations, world leaders, United Nations, it only needs one or two sensible world leaders that go, right, hang on a minute, because it's not right. So they're there. But equally, we're then seeing other ones across Azad. There's one in Kotli. I think there's one in Muzaffarabad. Did I see one in Mirpur as well? I'm not sure. There's various areas where they're all doing the same, and they're doing a symbolic hunger strike for 3 days to raise that awareness and support with him. We're seeing it will be in Belgium and in London, hopefully one in America as well, possibly in, is it Norway? I saw Brussels, the European Parliament, maybe at Geneva. So that's going on, Mary, to highlight what's happening there. And then also then this march that will start, I think it starts today. I haven't been recently to pick up any information. And I believe the march is going to the ceasefire line, a tea tree note crossing the gate there, and they want to sit down, an indefinite sit down. And we saw that a letter was sent from the diplomatic bureau for an independent Jammu and Kashmir in America. And that was sent to the United Nations and asking for the United Nations to watch both the Azad police and security services, and to watch the Indian Army and border crossing, because they didn't want anything to happen where the others are blaming the others. So in a disputed territory, we're going to see the Azad side will try to protect their citizens from walking. I mean, they're sitting at the crossfire line, but if Indian decided to fire across, because they knew they're there. So the realities here are, with all the different perspectives, the dynamics, people should have a right to protest. They should have a right to be heard.
Yes,
These people should be allowed to march to the ceasefire line. Let them sit down. Let them raise their demands. Let them be heard. And so what we don't want to see is any deaths, any firing, any fighting from anybody. And so for me, from where I sit, and the Western society and a democratic society, we often see where the police go in, even in the UK, and they try to disband or dispatch groups because they worry about what will happen. Ultimately, if you stand back and let these people do what they want to do, they're making it clear it's peaceful. They're not carrying guns. They're not carrying weapons. They're using the power of themselves and their voices and taking that forward. And it's important that they stay safe. So this is what they've done to reach out. And as you know, Mary, we have, for Let Kashmir Decide, we embrace all ideologies because we want a movement that democratic, that hears for what the Kashmiris want. It's not for us to say what they should do for the future. We want the peace. The more people that become involved in the freedom movement, whatever solution, the louder we can make the voice. And it's about the human rights for us, the oppression, whether it's the illegal occupation, whether it's the abusive atrocities, or whether it's about the land use. Regardless of all of that, Kashmiris need to be heard. So that's, it's a crucial part of the movement, Mary. People will look back on this time, and a lot hinges here on what happens with Yassin Malik, because he's a larger than life person. We've seen also Michelle Malik raising her voice at every opportunity, that the tearful images of his daughter, crying, begging him not to hunger strike, and that's because she knows the fragility of him. She also knows that he wants to stand up and fight, but she's threatening to join him to hunger strike alongside him, with that saying to him, Daddy, if you strike, I'm going to strike too. So it's very much a large figure here that stands for freedom. He's also a father, he's also a husband, and it's impacting on many, many lives. And it would be good, to see the resolution. And this is an important moment, Mary.
What do you think Let Kashmir Decide coalition should be doing?
Oh, well, hopefully exactly what we are doing. I mean, if anybody's watching this and wants to give us up any comments, that would be much appreciated. So I think it's about us internationally, in our countries, knocking on our UK door and uniting the people. So if we look at the work in Azad just now, we have, as Let Kashmir Decide, because of their Kashmiris' resolve and determination and struggle, reaching out to us and appreciating the support. So sharing what their grassroots effort work are, that's what they're doing on the ground, trying to reach more of their countrymen, trying to let their country folk and leaders know this is how we feel and this is what we want. Now we can share that work. So within our own Facebook pages, we are able, so we know we're getting that in America. We've got people in America sharing this out, yourself, myself here in the UK, others sharing that outwards. We have people in Australia quite strong, and in Canada. So we're able to raise out the voices from the ground. It's harder in Indian occupied Kashmir. We have to look really hard for those efforts. So I think that's given a lot of attention to Azad, because they can raise their voices a lot more at the moment for what they want, and they are working for more say in their country. Now, we can get involved in human rights issues, but obviously it's not for us to solve other countries' political issues. You know, we've got our own political issues in our countries that we work on, we want to see, but we can raise the plight for humanity, and let Kashmir decide as the global coalition being a solution. So we can communicate, you know, the network that we have and sharing. We have the Yassine Malik signature campaign where, you know, I take that with me. I get signatures on it from people. If I'm out in a coffee shop, I might just wander to a couple of tables, or I go up to the till. I haven't been on the ground myself in Glasgow for a little while, but you can collect 200 to 300 signatures a day. So any of us globally can do that. And build those up. There's online petitions. We have our mandate, the Let Kashmir Decide Global Coalition mandate, where we're looking for people to sign their names up for that, as many organizations as we can, which is essentially demilitarize, decolonize, and self-determination, and trying to stop the human rights abuses. Any ideology should be able to support it, regardless of what people want. And unity is key. If people want to, you know, if they believe that Kashmir is Pakistan, and, you know, Pakistan, they love Kashmir, Kashmir's theirs, or people in Kashmir, we love Pakistan, we are with Pakistan, then, you know, it's about respect for their opinion. They have that right to be embraced, just the same as those that believe independent. You know, strongly, we have a sovereign right. We don't even want to decide, because it's our right and we want that right back. Let Kashmir Decide gives the freedom to choose. So the more voices we have, democracy, if the majority of people want to be free, then that will come out. So I feel that it's a movement for all, that our job is to embrace that, raise people globally, online, on the ground, so that we can pressure our government, so we can write to our governments, human rights organizations. The more people, the more these organizations and our leaders see people standing up, the more power we have. You know, if there were millions standing up now, you know, to the United Nations, outside the door, writing. I mean, I've written to the United Nations on behalf of Let Kashmir Decide Global Coalition, which I did last time with the Azad March that went to the United Nations building, but also on our behalf to the UN, again, over this tea tree note, sit down, again, about safeguarding and humanity and people's right to protest. So it's showing, I hope, that the world are no longer hidden from this, that they are actually part of this now, part of this movement. And that is because, you know, humanity does affect us all. We are all human beings. You know, if you hurt one, you hurt us all. And it's not fair. It's not fair when there is, now, it's for me, I'm living a privileged life, a peaceful life, a calm life, and cannot bear that other people are living to this extreme. So I think our role is to be there in solidarity, whichever voices, whichever opinions the Kashmiris have and want us to project, but also to raise that awareness, raise the global awareness of the human rights abuses and the injustices. Indians' actions, because alone, aside from Kashmir, we're seeing a huge, atrocious abuse of rights to people in India itself. Looking at Rana Ayub the other day, you know, that all the abuse that she is getting, and the same with again, the name has gone through me, but journalists that are locked up, many have furs on them, and it's getting out of hand. And obviously it's to silence the truth and change the narrative and give just the Indian narrative. So we need to keep uniting people, reaching out for the expertise, putting the pressures in the places we have. I don't know, Mary, if you have any other thoughts further to that, or to expand on that as to what you think else we could be doing.
Well, I guess I have the question yet of of how we can support this hunger strike movement. I find that an extremely powerful thing, and how we could support that. And the actual fact that people are turning this hunger strike, the solidarity with Yasser Malik, into participating. I mean, the hunger strike thing has always sort of fascinated me. I know Palestinians have used it for a long time. The Northern Irish Republican movement used it for a long time. I vividly recall, I don't remember that Israel has allowed people to die. Probably they have, but I vividly recall that Margaret Thatcher allowed Irish Republicans to die on these hunger strikes. So it's not unheard of that these governments are merciless if they can get away with it. So I think if we have any hope to save Yasser Malik and get even a modicum of a justice in the courts, that it's very useful for us to support and promote this popular hunger strike movement that takes it out of the prisons and from the prisoners themselves, and acts in a very strong gesture of solidarity.
Oh,
I'm wondering what you think we can do to build it, to to publicize what they're doing, to get pictures.
would you want my? You're not going to like my honest answer, Mary. You're going to need to get yourself to the White House or the UN building in America. You write your letter to United Nations, to your president, and you go down there and you go on a hunger strike and you ask Kashmiris to come and join you. That will make big news. I considered it myself. I could go down to the Scottish Parliament. I could go down to the UK government. But this is where it's difficult. It's like tonight, Tanvir was unable to join us after a certain time because as a student, he has an exam tomorrow. Now, my job is as a primary school teacher. I am employed by my local council. As a local council employee, I am to publicly, regards to politics, not to, so in my area, I don't advocate for Labour, Conservative, or because as a teacher, you have some influence and that can stay away. So I am allowed my human rights to protest. So therefore, I have professional guidelines and personal guidelines as to what I can get involved with. So, for example, within my school environment, I rarely discuss Kashmir because it starts to bring in political, which my employers would not approve of. So there's lines that you do not cross because they're in my contract. But as a human rights activist, I can talk about human rights and aware people about how we should respect one another. So it's done like that. So I could go and sit and have a hunger strike. The line for me is where that becomes, where's the line between the human rights and the political nature of it? And I think within the regards of my job, for me to do something like that, I could well risk my career and my job. And it's not, and because it's difficult because I know the impact it could have if I went on a hunger strike in support, and so that is how I think a lot of people could support in their towns, in their cities, just for 3 days, just for the symbolic. No, it does draw attention. You can get the newspapers involved, and that's what would then lead to media attention. So for me, if I went down to my local village and I sat myself at the clock, I could do it probably for a few hours as a humanitarian thing, but we're a small community and it's very difficult for me then within guidelines under the General Teaching Council in Scotland and as a teacher as to what I need to adhere to. And I'm clear on those. And I think that crosses a line where I could potentially risk my career. And obviously that keeps me afloat and my family afloat and gives me money to protest as well. So until I'm retired, and not under the responsibility or presenting somebody else, then I can't do that. I think my council and my school would all be proud of me for everything I'm standing up for and doing and saying in the humanitarian realm, but then there comes a line where it can't be crossed. It starts to go into political rather than humanitarian. So, Mary, at the moment, you've got nobody that says you can what you can or cannot do. So there's the potential there for.
Let me just say that people can't. I can't travel 1,500 miles to have a protest in front of the White House. I don't have the resources, or it's not possible for me to do that.
Yeah.
And that's true. It's just a big damn country. It isn't possible for many people, or feasible, are going to go on hunger strikes themselves, you know, or travel. I mean, it's not. So what can we do if we can't do that? I mean, I can't travel to the White House, and I'd love to.
And that is. Yeah, I mean, it's like when this first happened, I wanted to go to Indian occupied Kashmir with loads of people to get the troops out. But on a simple level, we can't, because people are working. They've got to go to work. We've got ferries in the way. We need passports. It's not, you know, you would think the world is open. We can go where we want and do what we want, but we can't. So for you, it's yes, those realities. If you went down your street and sat somewhere, is anybody going to pay any attention? So writing. You know, we can share on social media, that's one, but writing. So write into your councillor, your MP, and making them aware. That's just one more person that's aware. Obviously, Malik, what's happening and the hunger strikes. Letters to newspapers, people could try. We do have, as I say, the petition and things online to aware of that. And protests themselves. But we need to build more support, more solidarity, more awareness amongst people at the moment, because we don't have the numbers. So these small protests are good, and they're not just reaching that local area. I mean, that's the thing, Mary, if you did take yourself down to your local town and it's what you could share on social media. You know, I'm having a day of hunger strike, but equally health. You know, I've got people that haven't been able to do it because they're diabetic. So as you say, if you can't hunger strike, what can you do? And writing, never underestimate writing to your MP, to the United Nations, to world leaders, Twitter once a day, Facebook once a day, and just joining and finding out. I think, unless you can think of anything else, I think they're the only weapons in our hands at the moment.
I think maybe it's more important that because the hunger strike movement is something that's coming from Kashmiris themselves, especially out of Azad Kashmir, which has a very immediate physical geographic relationship to, and you know, political relationship to Kashmir. So I think it's one thing for us to support that struggle and publicize it, and also Kashmiris in diaspora in Belgium or Norway. I don't know if we all have to go on hunger strikes, you know, where there's no organic relationship to it. You know what I mean? It would be sort of curious for me to go down to the public building here and have a hunger strike. So I think maybe what's required of us is a different kind of support than, you know, and I'm a believer that sometimes the protest by one person is very effective.
I think what's unusual, Mary, in this case, and it's something, you know, we often find the words hard to say because of being politically correct or not racist, but it's that white, you know, we've said before traditionally the white supremacism, you know, we're the founders of colonization, and it's still as awful as it is. They would, if I walked down and sat in the street, or a Muslim lady walked down and sat in the street, at the moment, as horrible as it sounds, it would draw more attention to us, because why is a white lady sitting down in the street complaining against India? And I think, as awful as it is, that is where some of the power, and it's why a lot of people in our countries, or particularly in the UK, listen to us, because you don't see many white people standing up for, you know, these occupied countries or oppressed countries. And
it reminds me of immigration rights protests here. And it's this is a very Mexican area. It's right on the border, and I'm very often the old white lady at these protests gets interviewed by the media, because it cracks me up sort of. The oddity of it. They want to know what's the old white lady doing here. It's very common that I get interviewed when I go
and Mary, that's what, to brutally, if you went and sat yourself, in your town centre prominent with a sign, Yasin Malik, with a petition, and you hunger strike for 3 days for Yasin Malik, people are going to come up to you and ask you, because as you said, it's a little white lady sitting, what's she doing? So that's all. That's the connection. It's the connection. It's the solidarity. The Kashmiris are doing it in solidarity. So, okay, I'll do it in solidarity too. We could do it in our homes. We could starve for 3 days. It's not easy to, people often do, what do they call it? Flushing yourself out for 3 days, don't they? Get rid of toxins. And so, and with social media, that can be shared. So TikToks or things like that. But ultimately, we just need to keep talking about Kashmir. If every person watching, listening to this out there just mentions it to one other person every day, have you heard? Have you heard? That's how it travels. And being kind of proactive really about it, I think that makes a massive difference.
Let me ask you, in 2 weeks, not even quite 2 weeks, the commemoration for August 5th, 2019 will be coming up, and Let Kashmir Decide Coalition is going to be building a Red for Kashmir campaign. I'm wondering how can you explain how Let Kashmir Decide is going to be integrating in not only support for the release of Yasin Malik, but the whole campaign around releasing political prisoners. There are many, Purim Parvez, too many to name. All of the journalists, all of the long-term men and women political activists who are interned, and also the occupation. So how will Let Kashmir Decide be integrating that into our commemoration for August 5th, 2019?
I think,
do you have any idea now?
Yeah, I'll go through bits of it, and there's a lot to that. So at the end of it, I guess to take it back to the beginning, we were aware of the Red for Kashmir when India went in on the 5th of August 2019 and locked down Kashmir overnight. Sent folk to their homes, the curfews, sent in all the military and cut them off. And so what was happening was the Kashmir diaspora around the world, to alert everybody and any Kashmiris themselves that were getting clever with the VPNs, they turned their profile pictures red, plain red, bright red. Simple message, alarm, help, stop, blood. It's to raise that awareness to the world. It's a way of reaching out. So the Kashmiri diaspora raised that out from the Kashmiris. And that, to me, is the underlying fundamental part. It's no political color. It's just a color that is most striking, will cause most awareness, causes people to say, what is this red? Why is your profile red? That's all you want people asking. So you give that opportunity. So this was something, obviously, wasn't it last year, Mary, just before we'd had the Let Kashmir Decide meetings, we'd had a solidarity event, but nothing was regular. It was once or twice. And that's where you said to me, I remember the message coming through one night, you felt that there was a bit of disheartened. You felt that people were, the Kashmiris were getting silenced more and more, and that, what could be done to keep this solidarity, keep this up. I mean, we've got videos out there, I know, where you talk about a movement that's sustained, that it's not just periodic outside buildings every so often, that we build that solidarity and raise awareness. So we put our heart and soul in with thousands of others into that Red for Kashmir campaign last year, which was solely and purposely intended for every Kashmiri, that stood for humanity, that stood for Kashmiris, whatever their ideology, to stand up and come together and unite and join. And so we made a lot of, there was interviews, we made the red posters, as you say, which is what Tanvir was a big part of last year, along with other many, this is what I'd hope to talk with Tanvir. There's a lot of active youths, and I think they're coming forward with a more open tolerance of other people's ideals, and they just want peace. They just want an end to it. So they're coming with all their technology, their awareness of things, what's cool, what works, and how to initiate it. So, for example, then last year with the Red for Cash, it was such a success. I think it was more of a success than we had hoped. And
Yes.
it really helped build the awareness. I think probably, to be fair, the strongest thing that it did was build more solidarity. It built more connections with like-minded people that perhaps didn't know there was a movement, and they saw it and they came forward and they're like, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. I've been watching this, or I've got Kashmiri friends, or and people connected. And then, of course, we changed the theme back to the tea, because there'd been a big problem with the red, with some of the Kashmiris in Indian occupied Kashmir side and some of the diaspora who have the heart of the Pakistan, and their heart is that Kashmir bleeds green. They feel that love for Pakistan from Kashmiris, and they say that's what Kashmiris want. That's their ideologies. So sadly, rather than joining the red movement and promoting the two or having it alongside, they refused to have anything to do with the Red for Kashmir and actively went against us on the day. So this is a challenge when there's a divide and rule, and when people feel threat from something that's all embracing of Kashmiri's voice, and then these divisions where we look at the United Nations and, people will argue, well, it's between India and Pakistan, and obviously those that love Pakistan or feel Pakistan, etc., then they would want the two-way vote, because Kashmir will go with Pakistan. Any independent maybe becomes a threat to them. But as I say, democracy should never be a threat to anybody. It should be about what the people want, and we want the human rights abuses to stop. So, we would embrace. So I think that's at the time, Mary, wasn't it? It was really hard. People had put their heart and soul into this red, and we really wanted to raise it. And by people going green and not red at the same time and having that big movement, it just felt that it pulled away from solidarity. So I think that's where we let the red rest, because it was causing too much. I remember it being quite an emotional time, actually. So we went to the tea, the solidarity, because of the legacy of the red. The tea was something we could come together around. Everybody can drink tea, even Indians that want Kashmir to go with India just to see the peace. There's Kashmiris that do probably want to go with India and just want to see peace. They can also join. People that want to go with India can join solidarity to see a solution, to stand up for human rights and see an end to all that. So it's all embracing, and it's been a good year because there's been different things that people have contributed to every 5th of every month. So I think Middlesbrough started it off in September. We had, it was Faisal Khan, who went from Manchester over to Middlesbrough and did the first speech really of the first one. And he said, I was meant to be there myself, but he stood in for me. And he basically said that freedom fighters, and he was in the army, and he said freedom fighters don't look like Rambo. They don't look like a big army man. Freedom fighters, they look like you, and they look like me, and they look like the children, and they are the people. And that's how he set the tone for the solidarity event. All of us are freedom fighters. The cup of tea is a light. We get together, we can still laugh in life. It's not all morbid, but we know the atrocities that we're actually dealing with are cruel. So the tea offers so much. It's the Kashmiri tea is really symbolic for Kashmiris. It's the popular drink. It's pink, it's salty, salt hears. Salt is the taste of your tears, and it's so symbolic. But the same also in the UK. We always say here, let's have a cup of tea. If everything's bad, let's have a cup of tea. So it's had that support, and I love it. So over the years, we've had over 100 people joining in to each event. And it's like I've said to you, Mary, if each of them have got at least 1,000 friends, then for in all those 100 people, that reaches 100,000 people, and that's incredible. So every one that joins, that's 1,000 more of how 5,000 they reach. And it bridges us and it builds us. And there's a young girl, oh, what's her name? I will remember it in a moment. She sends in every month, she's got a doll's tea set and a doll's house, and she makes, and what's happened over the year is she now makes her own videos. So it started off with her grandma helping her to create them. And now I'm trying to remember her age, 8 or 9, she's creating her own. I think it's Sarah. And, that's massive. One girl, because we saw what Greta Thunberg did. One girl, one Swedish schoolgirl. And so when you see like Sarah, it's inspirational. And she's showing the contrast between what her life is like with her teacups, having, with the children, compared to what we're seeing with children in Kashmir living under the barrel of the gun or under siege. So it's worked as a solidarity movement. So here we are, a year later, dropping the tea for the 5th of August to bring out the seriousness of what this is about. This is about oppression, illegal occupation, illegal incarcerations. And, it's not the time to be seen being frivolous, in terms of, but the solidarity that we've built up over the year, all of us, and more have come to join and understand the movement. It's that. So as we come to Red for Kashmir, I believe there is massive respect from us for all the Kashmiris. They've embraced the work that we do to inform us, to acknowledge us, to let us know how they want to be portrayed, how they want their movement to be supported. And I think we've honored that. And I think they've respected the moves that we've made. And then equally, there's huge respect from us, what we're raising and saying for all the activists, for the way they're doing it, for their fight and for freedom. So I think over this year, here we come to the 5th of August. So essentially, we need people to change their profile pictures now, saying of the date, Red for Kashmir, 5th of August. So on my website, below this video will be the posters, and it's vital, it's important, because if we want to see the change, we need to be the change. So people's profiles now need to say Red for Kashmir, 5th of August. Because most people have got on an average of 3,000 friends on Facebook. Those 3,000 friends, some of the, they'll see it. And, it might encourage them to change. And so it's so important. It's not just I might change my profile, or I might put my own profile picture on instead. It's massive. And then on the 5th of August, for the 24 hours, we want everybody's profile to be plain red. We want stories of Kashmir coming out, any of the protests, hashtag Red for Kashmir used, and raising the awareness to the world of what's going on in Kashmir. This is what's happening, and this is what we want to see. United Nations resolutions, world leaders stepping forward and giving Kashmiris their right to decide. It's the opportunity to share the human rights mandate, the petitions, and that one day will be so huge. The more people that make it aware now and build it. And that's really a solidarity and a raising awareness campaign for the Kashmiris that they can use as a vehicle. We have huge support from Palestinian activists, from Rohingyas, from the Syrian activists, from Libyan, because they recognize the connection. They recognize their struggle and their fight in these other people. And yes. I think we've talked before, haven't we, about a global movement, and that one day this fight is about Kashmiris and their humanity, but it's also about the mechanics that need to be kicked and changed and checked for the rest of the world. So the mechanics that we would aim on using to free Kashmir would be the same ones for Palestine, would be the same ones for where world leaders would say, right, we need to look at humanity and not the money, the move away from capitalism, the irony being how much more productive would people be without weapons and without the war. So we're working, I think, really towards the bigger global movement. we've seen Palestine action, direct action, activists on the roofs actually physically damaging the Palestine factory businesses. And they're up against societal values because people are saying you can't destroy a building. What are you doing? You can't throw paint over a building. We don't bash in windows. That's not what we do. But the activists are then standing their ground and saying, yeah, but we don't bomb. We shouldn't bomb people. You know, we don't. So by destroying that building, they're actually saving lives. They're saving human beings. They're direct action. People see their action. We're seeing at the moment that when they go to court, at the moment they're not able to pin much down on them because they have a right to protest. They did it recently in Glasgow, went on the roof of Glasgow, and they were in court, and the police released a statement, and they said they are human rights organisation, and they respect people's rights to protest. There was no condemning of these activists on the building. There was if our people feel this way, and this is what they're doing, I think they're getting done. They get them under the crimes as like malevolent behavior or malevolent mischief is like the strongest they can get. So it's the same, and that's some Kashmir movement too, because these bombs aren't just used in Palestine, they're used in Kashmir. So you'll often see the Palestine activists, they have supporters not on the roof, on the ground, and there'll be the Kashmiri flags there. So the movements are connecting too. So ultimately at the moment, it's getting the Kashmir movement known too, so that we can build them all together. At the moment, the Kashmir movement needs more, and that's, I think, what our goal is.
I wanted to say one thing about that the dispute that was so prominent last year when we were building Red for Kashmir. The alternative, there was a whole current of people who were opposed to it because, am I hearing myself? Because we did not call for a direct association with Pakistan, or for unity of Kashmir with Pakistan, and there's a very clear reason, and we make that very clear why we don't. It isn't for Kashmiri solidarity activists to make that decision about whether the Kashmiri people align with India or with Pakistan or not. That isn't for us to decide. That's for the people of Kashmir. Our sole job in Kashmiri solidarity is to support their struggle, to oppose the occupation, and to call for the release of political prisoners and the ending of forced disappearance and mass arrests and the extrajudicial executions of hundreds of young Kashmiris. That's our job. Our job is not to tell the Kashmiris how to resolve the question of self-determination. And we're very committed to that position. So it isn't up to us to choose whether or not they align with Pakistan. And the other thing, that the point that you were making about, I really believe this has been a big part of the Let Kashmir Decide coalition. It's a big part of our reason for existing. This is a time of genocide. The Palestinian people, Kashmiris, Rohingya, Uyghur, people all over the world the indigenous tribes in Latin America. This is a time of genocide, and what has happened is that these people fight these battles and try to build movements, international movements, in their defense, and the movements are not big enough, active enough, and valuable enough to stem the tide of genocide. And I really believe that there has to be much more active, dynamic collaboration between Palestinians, solidarity movement between Kashmiris, Rohingya, these indigenous peoples. It's an anti-colonial struggle. And I think that we can collaborate in a rebuilt anti-war movement because it involves what's going on in Syria, it involves what's going on in Ukraine. And I don't think that we can't just continue to fight hit or miss, episodic, once in a while. If we're lucky, we have to have a concerted, orchestrated international anti-colonial movement. And I think that we play a big role in that, not in telling Kashmiris or Palestinians how they should win their self-determination, but in helping to stay the hand of Israel, India, the United States, Russia, Myanmar, to stay the hand so that these people are able, have the room to fight for their freedom. So I just wanted to emphasize the 2 points that you made about that we bleed green business, and we will stay. We don't care about what color, green or red. The point is solidarity with the right of Kashmiri people to self-determination, and collaborate with other people to help them achieve that. So that
absolutely, and very well said and succinctly put and correct. You know, you're right. That is exactly what it is. And I think, you know, the more brains that we have, you know, the more people can see things. So, you know, for example, when we started this Solidarity Day for the Red, I think you, me, and Lee in Australia were in discussion. So we came up with the idea. Once I started sharing it within other groups, then, you know, one member in particular came to me and said, because I came to you with it, can we drop the tea for this month? Can we just make it about one thing? You know, this is a serious issue, and can we just focus on the red for Kashmir and not have the two? You know, and then so that discussion that was then discussed with other people, and it was like, that's a really valid point. And so people's ideas come into, you know, we set something up, hey, this is great, but what about? You know, this is great, but what about? And that's the only way we can grow movements like this. And as you say, this is not for us to decide. We can decide we want peace, and this is how we think we could get there. Let's build a solidarity movement. Beyond that, that is up to the Kashmiris to then, as you say, decide their future and who their assertions with. And I think also, Mary, the other huge thing here is from the human right perspective, from humanity. It's not about religion. It's not about, other than within the genocide that people are having, the genocide of the Muslims in what we're seeing, but this is about a genocide of human beings. This is about human beings being oppressed. This is about human beings being occupied, you know, just for their religious beliefs. And yes, our humanity is what unites us. You know, we're all born the same way. We're all made the same way. This is it. And then it's people's beliefs on earth are dividing people in such cruel ways. And I think that's a key part of the movement also, that we're uniting regardless of what color we are, what race we are, what culture we are, what age we are, what color hair we've got, what color eyes we've got, what we believe in, what we eat. You know, it's that respect for each other, for each other's dignity as human beings on this earth. And, you know, it shouldn't be a big ask. It shouldn't be a big ask. And it's sad that it is, that greed and power and has that effect in this world. So as you say, it's bigger than that. So we're watching a lot happening in Azad this week, you know, making what noise they can. I know people in Indian occupied Kashmir will be doing their bits wherever they can. Unfortunately, at the moment, that we can't see that. So it's going to be an interesting week to watch. This time next week, then looking forward to speaking with Tanvir. If not this week, maybe the week after. I'm trying to think. I think I've got a few things happening next Thursday. That was quite an interesting discussion, Mary. Do you feel, is there anything else you want to say or ask, or?
No, I don't think so. You were covered it pretty good.
Okay, so everybody, thank you for watching us tonight. Red for Kashmir, simple request. Please turn your profiles read now using, there's posters out there, or create your own, alerting people, hashtag Read for Kashmir on the 5th of August. And then on the 5th of August, 24-hour Twitter storm. So tweet when you can, post on Facebook when you can, on Instagram. If we all just do one post and then people can share them, it will all be collated under the hashtag. But if we're all read and we're all posting posts out there, the name Kashmir will get known, it will get heard. Obviously, in all this, raise voice for Yassin Malik, pray for Yassin Malik, because sadly right now, here he is on a hunger strike till death, not physically well because of the conditions that he is being kept in. And so it's a crucial time. And, we wish his family well, all his supporters well, and everybody that cares for the Kashmiri movement. Let's hope we can just keep moving forward and keep supporting. Please contact us if there's anything we can do. Mary, thank you.
I do have one thing I would like to add, is that we know none of the details, but we know from protest statements made by different political organizations in Kashmir that the Indian Army is on a rampage right now, that they've killed, one estimate that I read in media was that they have killed so far 100 young Kashmiri men in these extrajudicial, claiming that they're fighting terrorism. But that's 100 men so far this year. That's an estimate, it might be higher. So the Indian Army is on a violent rampage, and we're not able to get a lot of information about it. And I think we need to incorporate that theme also into our preparations, our commemoration for August 5th, because we knew when they had complete colonial control on August 5th, 2019, that this is the kind of thing that would prevail in Kashmir. And it is. It's worse than we could possibly have imagined. And, this assault on young men, it's the same thing in Palestine, that they go after young men. It's the same thing in the American Black community, that they target young men in many ways, mass incarceration and shooting them in the back and executing them in the streets. It's how they approach genocide, really, is to go after and execute young men. And I think we should incorporate that theme in defense.
It's vital, Mary, absolutely vital. Yeah. And even today, I saw within the hunger strikes and the protests in Azad, the line Modi out, India out. It's not just about, when we're looking at Azad's side, it's not just about them, it's for their brothers and sisters on the other side of the borderline. Yes. And yes, it's easy to look at the news and the protests we can see, but you're right. And we need to alert the world to the genocide, the atrocities that are going on in India, where no human rights envoy is allowed in. India, they're violating human rights crimes, the interventions, their own constitution, and it's being allowed to happen at the moment. And this is why we must make a noise, so that the world, until we make a noise, our world leaders won't do anything, or they can do more with the power of the people. So if we want to be powerful, then it's up to us to be powerful. So Mary, thank you so much for your conversation tonight. Everybody, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Good luck. Sorry? We will have Tanveer, sorry, for everybody that tuned in to see Tanveer, and we'll find out the vital role of the youth from Tanveer himself. Thank you so much, everybody, and good night.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Mary. Lovely to see you again.